Attention everyone, attention everybody. Quiet down, class, everybody keep it down, guys. Come on, let's go here. Welcome back to another edition of Classic Classroom. This is Tyler, the Professor. I'm with the Prodigy, Mr. Cerulli.
Whoa. Professor. We've got a whole hour ahead of us. Why are we going so fast here?
Whoa, my apologies, guys, but we're watching WCW 1997's Cruiserweight division. It's like a million miles a minute. It's a car crash. I was trying to get into the gimmick here. Should I try that again, maybe? Let me try that again. Let me try that again. Attention, everybody. Quiet down because your class is in session. Welcome back to another edition of the Classic Match Classroom. I am doing something now which all new wrestlers should do. Slow it down a little bit. I am the Professor, Tyler Wolf. I am joined by the Prodigy, as always, Mr. Cerulli. Anthony, host of the Titantron, co-host of the Titantron now, as you have your new friend to play with. Not that I'm jealous, but I'm jealous.
You get Mike every week.
That's fair. I love Mike. He's the best. Welcome, man. What's going on?
Nothing much. As you've probably heard already, our first episode came out of me and Antonio. We're doing some great stuff. I'm again repping another Turnbuckle Tavern t-shirt. This time they made a shirt for me. Hey. I am young Anthony on the show, so I had to represent.
Young Anthony there. You're the Prodigy here.
I've got so many nicknames. You know what I mean? But I'm Hollywood sometimes. That's a whole nother gimmick that we don't have to get into right now. But maybe that'll make an appearance on the Classroom one day. Who knows?
My gimmicks are the Professor and shut the hell up, asshole Tyler on Count It Out.
Yeah,
I think that's
I see you a lot as that gimmick, by the way. But
apparently that's my main gimmick. I guess you got to live the gimmick, and apparently
exactly.
So I kind of want to change things up a little bit before we get into our lesson plan this week, which is going to be Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc 97. Hence my very fast talking at the beginning of the show. I want to talk next week, though.
Okay.
I'm going to change it up because I'm really excited about next week's show, and it's a big lesson plan, and I really want to put some emphasis on it. And I want you to get a head start on your homework because there's a lot to take in here. Okay. Next week's show falls on Halloween. And what fun it would be to do a Halloween theme episode.
Yeah.
So
let's do it.
I'm thinking of some legendary characters. Obviously, everybody thinks The Undertaker, right? But what about Kane and the story of how Kane debuted in the WWF, right?
Okay.
It's a story that we only just know that moment at Hell in a Cell when he breaks the door down. So next week, we are going to have our lesson plan focused on the debut of Kane, leading up to the legendary Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker Hell in a Cell match from Bad Blood 1997. I love this match. It's one of my favorite matches of all time. But more importantly, let's talk about those forgotten moments with Kane. We're going to cover a lot. It's going to be a longer lesson. We're going to have a Mankind Undertaker feud in there. We're going to talk about the birth of Degeneration X. We're going to talk about Paul Bearer and the Undertaker storyline. There's a lot to take in, and I'm really excited about it. And I want to start promoting it this week, right off the get-go before we get into anything, because I really think that everybody's going to enjoy this episode, and I think you are as well.
Yeah, there's so much loaded into here. I didn't even know that DX was a part of this whole thing. I'm looking forward to seeing now a 2-time honor roll recipient, Mick Foley, getting involved here.
Can he get the hat trick?
That's a good. That's enough of a reason to tune in for next week. But yeah, man, I've been waiting to look at the entirety of the Kane, build up and where we got to that point. I'm looking forward to it. Halloween episode. I don't know, like we should do something special for the Halloween episode, like maybe like getting costume. You know what I mean? Like we should, you throw on a costume, I throw on a costume. Let's do something. We'll plan it. We'll see. But
tune in next week to see what the Can-Am connection can come up with. I'm calling us that, by the way. That's our new
Can-Am connection. I love
Ever since
that.
you put that out, it got a huge pop out of Mike because we always love the Can-Am connection.
Beautiful.
So that's our tag team name going forward. But we'll definitely pull out a costume. Let's have some fun next week.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get into this week first of all. Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc 1997. What did you know, if anything, about Rey versus Eddie at Halloween Havoc leading into this?
You know, I knew that it was like a lot of people say, the greatest match in WCW history, probably the greatest high flying match of all time. I knew about, I guess, the legacy or the legend of the match, but I really knew nothing about really either of these guys at the time going into, late 90s, Eddie and Ray. That's why I knew that like the feud was going to focus heavily on this. So I was so ready to see Ray and Eddie go up against all these different high flyers and cruiserweights and everything. So I was really excited to see, these guys not only go at each other, but going at the other guys within the WCW field at this point. Because, I really had no idea. I knew obviously Ray and Eddie were there, but I didn't know about much of these other guys that we're going to be talking about a lot. So I was looking forward to it. And yeah, I told you last week that there was a list of these matches that I wanted to see. This had to be near the top of that list.
Perfect. Well, what do you think then? You ready to get into this?
Ring the bell, because class is in session.
Perfect. We are going to start with something a little different here. I sent you about 6 different parts of Mike Tenay breaking down the history and the heritage of Lucha Libre. What did you think about these little video packages?
Wild Mike Tenay sighting. You love to see it. So really good stuff here. It really broke down the importance of the luchador history, Lucha Libre, all of that stuff. I think they did a really great job in showcasing the, emphasis and putting some kind of legacy and lineage on the mask, just the mask in Lucha Libre, be it whoever it may be. There's so much heritage and so much history behind each of them. So I think they did an amazing job in really kind of showcasing that history and kind of presenting how important it is to wrestling.
Lucha Libre and the Mexican Luchadors have arrived in WCW with a bang. Their high-flying style has made a great impact and has added a new dimension to pro wrestling in the U.S. The majority of their wrestlers wear masks. Why the masks? Well, I'll explain the significance of the Mexican history and the culture. I'll also explain the reasons behind the masks, and the luchadors will tell you how important they are to their careers. We'll visit the shop of the first mask maker to show how he creates the masks. We'll see the steps from concept to completion. Lucha, 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 that's the craze in Mexico. We'll explain the tradition behind these daredevils. We'll trace some of their rich family bloodlines over generations. On our visit south of the border, we'll show you the hardships that they had to endure. We'll visit the camps where they learned how to fly. Those wrestlers will also explain the importance of their wrestling in WCW. Witness the high-risk maneuvers that are all part of the excitement of the Mexican style of wrestling. Join us next time for Lucha Libre and the Mexican Luchadors.
Mike Tenay was great as the the narrator here. He really just did a lot to put as much emphasis as he could on this whole type of wrestling. And it really put a lot of, importance going and taking a lot of this Lucha Libre stuff and implementing it into WCW, something that I'm pretty sure WWF wasn't doing around this time. So it was unique. It was new. And you got to see a lot of these really cool cruiserweights. They put a lot of focus on Rey Mysterio here, put a lot of focus on Eddie, even guys like Psychosis and the son of El Santo and all these different guys. I thought it was really cool to see kind of their take on the history of Lucha Libre.
Absolutely. And of course, Mike Tenay, who I've stole the name from the Professor.
Yes.
That's going to take us to the first part of the series. The returning Rey Mysterio pins the #1 contender, Eddie Guerrero. Eddie's getting ready to go into Fall Brawl to face Chris Jericho. Little did I know that this was the first ever one-on-one matchup between these two, which is super cool. Let's talk about Rey Mysterio in 1997. This guy was so quick. He was can't miss TV at this time. Very special. And it's just really too bad that the commentators missed a great match talking about anything and everything other than these two guys in the ring. And believe you me, this is not the first time you are going to hear me say that during this.
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have an interim commissioner in his place, and he's out. I mean, the man was brutally attacked, and I'm not so sure we're going to see him again.
Well, we may have an announcement later in this broadcast about a new interim commissioner for WCW, and as we see in the ring, Rey Mysterio Jr. is back in action.
Well, who's the rumors on the new commissioner or whatever, the interim guy? He's got to be a tough guy. We need a wartime consigliere.
I love this match. So what I wanted to put an emphasis on throughout this entire episode is that you see a lot of elements of this high fly luchador type style in 2021 now more than ever. Modern wrestling, it's young bucks, all these very high flying Phoenix, all these type guys, and they're all great at it. You know what I mean? They're all great at what they do as far as the high flying is concerned. However, what I picked up immediately from this match is that there is so much more psychology in these high flying matches than there is modern high flying, modern luchador, whatever you want to call it. And I think that also ties into pairing a high flyer with a technical based wrestler in Eddie. It just makes up for a really even matchup between these two. There was just so much great stuff here. I think, I have to bring it up. The Hurricane Rana that Rey does as his finisher. So great. That presents
spikes them, eh?
Yes. That I like. He does such a great job in doing the flip. And then immediately, like it looks like a legit spike to the head. Like it's so quick. So that presents two questions to the professor. Number one, you mentioned Rey was gone, and now this is his return match. Where was he? Was he injured?
I think he had a knee injury. I'm pretty sure he's on the shelf with a minor knee injury. I think they said he was out for about 3 months.
Okay. All right. Cool. So then second question doesn't tie into the first, but second question to the professor. So his finisher is the Hurricane Rana. What about the 619?
The 619 was not a thing during this time period.
Really?
He would do the 619 as a fake out. So if he would, get a flurry of offense, their opponent would take a powder to the outside of the ring, then he would run towards the ring and do the 619.
Yeah, I know.
But he never used it as a move until he got to the WWE. And
wow.
he never used it as a move until it was the WWE. So that was Rey Mysterio, Booyaka, 619.
Booyaka.
Who's that jumping out the sky, Rey Mysterio? But in WCW, never utilized as a move.
That caught my eye. That was so crazy to see that was never his move. But I love the Hurricane Rana so much. It's equal to the 619 in my eyes.
This whole little story that's told here, it doesn't get a lot of emphasis in WCW. And I didn't even know what their build was leading up to this match, going back, doing my research for it. But I really enjoyed, it almost seems like by fluke that they told this story. Rey pins the number one contender as he's about to go into his title match. A lot of people get upset when these guys don't look strong, quote unquote, going in to title matches. But I don't think it hurt Eddie going into it. And then as we get into the next match here, I think it actually makes the story a little bit better. The fact that Rey goes over here because it's leading into Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Jericho for the Cruiserweight title at Fall Brawl. I'm not going to lie to you. I did not need to include this match in the build. I wanted to because this is one of my favorite matches of all time. And I needed you to see it and I need to know your take on it.
Well, it's one of your favorite matches of all time. And immediately it has to be one of mine as well. And thank you for including it because I kind of picked up on the fact that this wasn't really like part of the feud, but still I was like Jericho and Eddie, like I need to see this.
Wow. You talking about great athletes, guys. You are seeing guys take maneuver after maneuver and just come back with a counter.
The hard-fought matchup that we expected with this World's Cruiserweight title at stake.
There's so much. I feel like there's 3 stages to this match. First stage is very slow, technical, just a very slow build, kind of leading up to the second stage, which is a lot more of your high-flying action, very high-paced, action around this point. And then you get to the third stage where you have your big moves, kind of the payoffs to a lot of the build up within the first and the second stage. You know that I love whenever a wrestler works another person's body part specifically. And we saw that a lot with Eddie working the back. I think he was pulling on the jaw and the chin. Jericho's selling makes it so much better. His classic facial expressions, very like hokey, but like it works here. There were, like I wrote down that there was just like that chin lock midway into the match. It just looks so great because of his selling. What I picked up on also is that I love how Eddie specifically, but I'll also tie it to Jericho, that they adapt so well to both the technical and the high flying situations that they find themselves in. When it comes to Eddie and Rey, you're going to see more of technical based Eddie, because Rey picks up a lot of the high flying spots. He does all of those flips and Hurricane Ranas. Eddie is more in slowing down the match a little bit, working the arms, working the back, whatever it may be. Whereas in this match, you're seeing a completely different Eddie. He's the one who's a lot more high flying, whereas Jericho's more on the technical base, because that's, the 1,004 holds, So
That was even
for
before
Eddie,
this time period too. This is white meat babyface Chris Jericho. Like
exactly,
He has never really even had a character up until this point, other than the guy that throws himself against the crowd and goes, "Come on, baby."
But I just love that about Eddie. And honestly, throughout this feud, Eddie starts to become one of, I try to always come up with like a mental list of like, who are the top wrestlers of all time. And I wasn't sure about Eddie Guerrero, because you think of like Bret and Austin, Rock and Taker, all these guys. And I was always like, Eddie's probably like around top 15 or so. This feud specifically, and this match specifically with Jericho, is making me rethink my list to maybe I have to include Eddie in the top 10, because he's really, he gets his praise. I think he's properly rated, but honestly, like I could see anyone making the case for Eddie to be top 10 all time.
Yeah, I don't think Eddie doesn't get the recognition that he deserves, but I agree with you. I think he still deserves more, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
If you're looking at somebody as like the all-around complete package of a professional wrestler, with your chemistry, your in-ring, connecting with an audience, promos, all that stuff, I think you can make a case to put Eddie in your top 10.
Yeah, sure.
I could definitely he's got every, and especially when, because at this point in WCW, this is a newly heel Eddie Guerrero, you know what I mean? And so he was figuring stuff out, but especially when he got to the WWF, and they've really tapped into that Latino heat character, lie, cheat, steal, just the creativity that came out there, the connection with the crowd. Like one day we're going to have to do Eddie versus Brock Lesnar, where Eddie wins the world title.
That's another match on that list.
It's so good. And we will do that match maybe in February to celebrate the anniversary of it. But that to me is like the epitome of Eddie, the connection with the crowd. And yeah, man, as much as he's loved and praised and doesn't get shortchanged, he still kind of gets shortchanged a little bit when talking about the greatest of all time.
So real quick before we move on, and I always try to mention, well, I don't try to, but I always find myself mentioning our best friend Dave Meltzer in a lot of these episodes. Do you know the rating that he gave this match?
I do not. If I take a guess, like 3.75, maybe
3.5 stars for this match. Low.
Meltzer was a lot tougher. He was a lot tougher of a critic back in these days too. And that's why Meltzer always had a lot of credibility, because he wasn't just throwing out 5-star matches, unless you're in Japan. Like, if you take a look at the list of Meltzer 5-star matches, he didn't give any 5-star matches in North America. 97's Hell in a Cell, which we'll talk about next week, was the first one that he had given in years and years in North America. Like, and then the next one I don't think was until Punk and Joe fought in Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I was going to mention that was the next one.
So he was very guarded with those 5 stars, but whatever. He's kind of a douchebag.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, true.
Let's move on here. We got our next match. I believe it's the next night. Rey Mysterio versus Juventud Guerrera. awesome to see these guys in the ring together. And I feel like, and this is something I've heard Jericho talk about, the WCW mid card, they could kind of just do whatever they wanted. And I feel like that, and this is kind of the second theme that we're going to talk about throughout this thing. I just feel like that they're just like, okay, you guys got 6 minutes, go out, do whatever the hell you want. And Rey goes over. And that's what they did. And that's why I kind of came on jokingly at the beginning here, talking a million miles a minute, like a car crash, because that's what basically every week we're going to be talking about. 6 minute, fast pace, awesome action. Commentators ignore it, and it gets you guys over. And Rey Mysterio picks up the win over Hoovy here. Another fun match, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mentioned, and I want to hit on both of these things that I've talked about as far as the psychology in these high flying matches, and also commentary not giving a shit about it. So as far as the psychology, you really see that here as well. And that's what I love so much about this, is that it's not just high flying. You know, I love what they're doing in AEW, and I love all the high spots, but you need some time to breathe.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you see. Yeah. And that's what they do here. There wasn't a lot of technical stuff like we saw a lot with Eddie, but it was almost like methodical, you know, type of high flying where it still made sense to do these spots. And I love that so much. So now I want to talk about the commentary just not caring. And there's a certain match specifically that perfectly demonstrates that, which we'll get into in a moment. But like, it's insane that they do not talk about anything that is going on. Like, it's mind-blowing that you just mentioned, like, you know, it felt like they told them, here's 6 minutes, Rey goes over, have fun. You know, that's very similar to what we see nowadays, or what we have been seeing nowadays with 205 Live. That's exactly, you know, a lot of the stories that you hear from guys like, you know, Ali and Mike Bennett. You know, they're saying that they literally do not care about 205 Live. They let them just go out there and have fun. And they do everything. The wrestlers do everything that they care to make them care about what they're doing. And, you know, it just shows that times really haven't changed at all. There hasn't been enough of an emphasis on the cruiserweight division in anything except for Impact. I think Impact does the cruiserweights phenomenally, and they have their entire run as a company, as well as ROH. You know, so many right companies that do it right, except the big companies. They just completely flop every time. It's heartbreaking, but so be it.
I mean, the theme I got out of this, that if your name isn't Rowdy Piper, Macho Man, DDP, or Hulk Hogan, they didn't care. They didn't care about anything else, right?
Yeah.
You know, and let's move on to the next match here. Rey Mysterio versus Silver King. I really love this match. I love me some Silver King, by the way.
So good.
Chris Jericho does, again, we're talking about Chris Jericho. Oh, man, you're making a run for honor roll already, Jericho.
Oh.
Jericho does this great intro many years later, a couple of years later, I guess about a year later, where he's like the heel cruiserweight champion, and it's a cruiserweight battle royal. And Jericho like introduces all the participants, but he makes fun of them all as they come out. And when Silver King comes out, he has this line where he goes like, if this guy wins 3 more matches, he's going to be promoted to gold. It's Silver King. And I just always love that line. I just thought it was so good. But this kind of is classic WCW at the same time. The crowd did not give a shit about this match because Raven comes out through the crowd, who was new to the company at the time. This might have even been Raven's debut in the company. I don't know for sure.
I was going to say, because this is 97. Like, we just talked about Raven showing up on Raw.
WrestlePalooza, right? Yeah. This was shortly after that WrestlePalooza match with Tommy Dreamer. That was Raven's exit from the company. So this was a couple weeks later, right? Man, look at us just loving 97. God, I love that. Let's talk about that reverse Hurricane Run off the top rope, though. Holy shit. Like, so
good.
Again, these guys went 3 minutes. Everything made sense. It didn't feel like a rush 3 minutes, which is a real art form.
Not at all.
And I love that Eddie comes out to big heat.
Yeah.
I love the post-match angle where Rey hits the flip dive on him and picks up the belt, looks at it, puts it down. And I love the fact that Rey Mysterio has been on a roll the last few weeks. The commentators, the few seconds that they do talk about the match, do put over that Rey's been winning. And just like take a look at consistent booking can do for somebody, and not this 50-50 flip-flop bullshit that they do all the time, right?
Yep.
Rey Mysterio is winning. He's now, in line for a title shot because he has been winning. He's pinned the current champion. He pinned him the week before he won the belt. They're actually telling a pretty good story here.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's just so good to see Rey in his, like, basically his prime here. I don't know if people would really argue that. He works so well with these other high flyers. And to any of our listeners, and even to you, Professor, if any of you have any Silver King matches that you would like to recommend me watch, please send them my way, because I need to see more of Silver King. That's all I have to say.
Man, I'm with you. I don't know a lot about Silver King. I'd like to find some of his AAA stuff as well. I bet.
Yeah,
it's
like
good.
I got 3 minutes of him, and I was like, shit, that was the most interesting 3 minutes of my life. I need more.
And he comes out looking like the weird stripper. His entrance, he wears like a cowboy hat with like little guns and stuff. Like he looks like, you ever watch The Simpsons Bang Bang Bart?
Oh yeah.
Here comes Bang Bang Bart. I don't know. Either way. Moving on, this is my favorite angle. My favorite part of the build. We got Rey Mysterio versus the new up-and-comer El Caliente. I'm starting to get really annoyed now by the commentators talking about everything other than what's happening in the ring. I get it. You want to put over stuff here and there, but this is getting absurd now. They're ignoring this. I do like Mike Tenay here, to his credit. I've been covering Lucha Libre for years. I've never heard of El Caliente before, and Bobby Heenan's kind of getting on him a little bit, or Zbyszko, one of the two. I can't remember who it was.
Looked like Mysterio was going to go give that fan one of his masks, and he got nailed.
By who? It's another masked.
Well, you're the Mexican expert. I don't know who it is.
Another masked luchador from Mexico here. He's putting Mysterio's El Caliente is his name, we understand.
Who?
Mike, why didn't
Who?
you...
El Caliente.
El
I mean, I've been
Caliente.
following Mexican wrestling for 20, 25 years. I've never heard of El Caliente.
Well,
They're like an appetizer at La Bambas or something.
El Caliente, though, is very clearly Eddie Guerrero. I love that they don't try to hide it. I love that Eddie's still working like Eddie. I love that the crowd knows that it's Eddie chanting "Eddie sucks." I'm going to go on record right now and say that Eddie Guerrero throws the best power bomb in the history of professional wrestling.
Yes.
Especially to guys like Rey Mysterio. You kind of see Eddie now trying to rip Rey Mysterio's mask off. Sorry, El Caliente is trying to rip Rey Mysterio's mask off. What an amazing finish show, that like double springboard like into like the pin. And then Rey Mysterio ends up ripping the mask off after, and it's Eddie Guerrero. What? The solid job by Eddie, his facial expressions were fantastic. And then the announcers throw right to Mean Gene and act like nothing happened. You're talking about letting moments breathe for a minute. Let a moment breathe for a minute, man.
Yeah. For this segment, I wouldn't go as far as to say it was my favorite in the whole feud. It was definitely a good one. I liked seeing, Eddie in the spot. I think it went on a little too long for me. If it was going to be like that, Eddie, like everyone knows it's Eddie, like you might as well just get your big moves in and then keep it moving. I don't know. I felt it was a little too long.
See, I'm gonna disagree with you on that point a little bit. Eddie Guerrero is currently your cruiserweight champion. You know what I mean? So I like the fact that he didn't just because he looks like he's not, just because he's El Caliente, doesn't mean that he's not Eddie Guerrero. Like I don't want to see him get beat in 3 minutes.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like he's still protected, but he's tricked Rey. Like Rey was expecting an easy match, and now Eddie's giving him an actual match, which I really like. I like the mind frame behind that.
So, question for the professor, and this is an opinion question, because we're talking about the finish, that double springboard, whatever he wants to call it, which got me immediately with the comparison, because I always knew that Rey was, the greatest high flyer, if you want to call him the greatest high flyer of all time. And this feud is showing me that specifically, because I'm used to like the 2010s Rey, which is still pretty good, but it's not anything close to
40
90s.
knee surgeries later,
Exactly. I mean? So to see this Rey was a completely different vibe. Everything was a lot better, obviously. And it got me thinking about the comparison to nowadays, who that could be. So I need to ask you, who do you favor more? As far as, you could talk about legacies and everything. as far as an in-ring standpoint, 90s Rey or current day Phoenix?
Ooh. I think current day Phoenix does more incredible things than 90s Rey did, just with the evolution of what people are capable of doing now. And, without 90s Rey, current Phoenix couldn't do what he does now because 90s Rey was trailblazing at the time.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with 90s Rey just because he was the guy that kind of put eyes to that. You know what I mean?
Good point.
So I do think that 90s Rey made it so there could be a Phoenix to this day. So for that reason, I'm going to give it to Rey, but Phoenix might be the most gifted high flyer I've ever seen do anything.
I mean, I could look at it from both ends. For me, I like Phoenix a lot. I think he does the high flying. He does it a lot more fluent, and it just seems very natural to him. Like based on this feud alone, like I see Rey, he's very fluent as well. There's some botches, and it happens. Obviously you can't springboard off of ropes and expect it to be perfect. But I think Phoenix, I should say. Now I have to make a distinction there. I think Phoenix does it a lot better in that he's just very natural with it. But I will say that Rey, I think, is the overall better wrestler, 90s Rey specifically. Just because I keep mentioning the psychology, I think he implements a lot of kind of calculated high flying instead of just doing high flying flippy shit for high flying flippy shit.
The psychology is stronger,
right? And that's not to say that Phoenix does, because Phoenix does it calculated as well. It's just Rey implements that psychology that I don't think I can say any other high flyer that I've watched in the last 10 years truly does. Ricochet, no. Will Ospreay, definitely no. I think it's very more focused on, doing these moves for a purpose, not for the sake of doing them.
Yeah, they fit into the matches better than, the stuff that you see now is definitely much more spectacular looking.
Yeah, it's spectacle
but it
stuff.
It definitely feels like, I don't like seeing guys stand underneath waiting to catch them for 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't like that. When Rey does this stuff, it's a smart part of the match.
Right.
I guess like the next two we can kind of blend in together a little bit here because they're, not much to it. We got Eddie Guerrero versus Ultimo Dragon. After his win last week, Rey Mysterio is now officially your number one contender. So nice constant storytelling there. Again, the announcers, I don't even think they knew who was fighting in this match. Just a nice win for your champion to build in some steam going on the pay-per-view against a top contender. And then the next week, we got Eddie Guerrero versus Psychosis. Again, 4-minute match, not much to it except for 2 points here. That massive senton bomb that Psychosis hit to the outside, which looked like it broke his hip. And after Eddie Guerrero wins the match, he's trying to very half-assingly at least rip off Psychosis' mask. Really felt like they could have honed into that a little bit more to tell this mask story, right? Because he tried to rip off Rey's mask with Caliante. I would have liked to have seen him maybe try to rip Dragon's mask off and then Psychosis as well. Could have been a little more thorough in the storytelling there.
Yeah, for me, the Ultimo match, I didn't really, it was what it was. I didn't really pay attention to it as much. But however, this is the point where the Psychosis match, this is where like it was becoming very irritating for me because I really wasn't paying attention to the commentary in the early stages because I was so focused on just all this high flying stuff. Once I've saw it, multiple times, I was like, okay, let me focus on other aspects. This was the point for me that I was like, commentary is so awful here. I think who was it? Larry Zbyszko was on commentary. And
he was so offensive, man.
I know. And he calls the senton a centron that I think either Shivani or someone else has to correct him on that. Oh my God. Like
he kept making
just
like noodle jokes and like Mexican dishes. Like
it's so dumb. Like it took me so out of like the rest of these matches. It's just like, why should I care if commentary doesn't care? You were seeing like even the senton, like they did not care. And that was so stiff of a senton. It was a beautiful move. And they just like, they couldn't give less of a shit. It was so annoying.
Psychosis!
Oh my! Off the top with a senton backsplash, and it looks like Psychosis may have injured his back.
You know, it looked as if the way he was landing, it was going to be one of those guillotine leg drops. But he landed, like you said, Mike, with a backsplash, and both men are hurt.
He got it right on the Titantron.
Yes, he did, if that's what you want to call it.
Senton.
Well, whatever.
Fans,
I don't speak Spanish.
as we said,
And up until this point too, I feel like other than that Caliente thing, there hasn't been a lot of interaction between Rey and Eddie. You know, other than Eddie trying to half-assingly rip the mask off, and thankfully that changes next week when we get Rey Mysterio versus Dean Malenko. These guys were so good together. Dean Malenko was Rey Mysterio's first opponent ever in WCW. They've already had a feud for the Cruiserweight title, so a nice little throwback here. But you got a great finish here where Rey hits that amazing springboard Rana, has Malenko pinned, and Eddie runs out from out of nowhere and rips Rey Mysterio's mask right off his head, allowing Dean Malenko with a beautiful transition float over into the cloverleaf.
what?
Oh my!
Eddie Guerrero came in and snatched the mask away from Rey Mysterio
Texas
Jr.
Cloverleaf.
into the Texas Cloverleaf. He had him in his move, but now Mysterio worrying more about covering up his face. And you know, Mike, just a few hours ago, about an hour ago, Rey told us about how important that mask was, and look what Guerrero did.
What a great way to protect Rey in losing. It didn't hurt Rey to lose this match because he had the match won, put some heat on Eddie, and now we're finally building up to this mask stuff a little bit better, you know?
Yeah, I loved this whole segment. This was the first that I've seen of Malenko, and really great stuff. It's again that type of high flyer versus technical based. It's just a match made in heaven. You know, a lot of people like to see high flyer versus high flyer, like Ospreay versus Ricochet, and sure, that's cool. But like, if you really want a perfect matchup with a high flyer, you got to put a technical guy with them, because then it slows down the high flyer and it makes it more of a psychology based match, which is always the best type of wrestling for me.
You referenced Ricochet and Ospreay. Other than that spot that they did where they did the double backflips, which was awesome, what else do you remember about their matches?
I know that it was very choreographed.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I just remember the spot where they literally were just, it literally, didn't they do like two cartwheels at the same time? Like,
yeah,
you know,
like,
I'm sorry,
cool,
but I hate that
not
match so
not
much.
my cup of tea. Yeah, that's why I agree with your point 100%. You put a great guy in there like Malenko or Guerrero, the ground game guy, right? That
exactly.
It's such a nice balance to the match for sure.
And it brings out both, you know, it brings out different aspects of both guys. For Mysterio, you start seeing him do a lot of not really technical base, but, you know, putting emphasis on his moves. And for someone like Eddie or for Malenko, you start to see a different side of them as well. Which I think Eddie does perfectly in all of his matches.
Absolutely.
Is adapting to his situation.
Absolutely. And you know, we're almost getting ready to get to the match here.
Yeah.
So I know this is a little bit on the shorter side, but don't worry, guys. We're gonna make up for it because we're going Broadway next week. Don't worry.
Yes.
In my opinion, maybe the best 4-minute TV match I've ever seen. Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Benoit here.
Yeah.
God, this was awesome. Chris Benoit was so over in 97. He was my favorite wrestler in 1997, him and Bret Hart. I just thought he was so good. You know, obviously the controversy Benoit, we don't need to get into that here. It doesn't matter. We're watching this from an in-ring standpoint.
Exactly.
Chris Benoit, the crowd loved him. Everything that these guys did, the crowd was on fire for, easy for me to say. And I love the finish of this match where Benoit kind of knocked himself out. And you give your cruiserweight champion a huge win heading into the pay-per-view on Sunday. Like, you know, Eddie looks really dominant coming into this pay-per-view.
Yeah, I love that they've done so much to build up both guys. For the most part, you know, you're keeping these guys separate. You know, you're getting the little segments with in the Blanco match with Eddie ripping off Rey's mask, but you're not really seeing these guys in the ring, sharing the ring as much as you see for other feuds. I think that does a lot because in an environment like WCW, where the cruiserweights are put on the back burner, like past the back burner, you know, in a situation like this, you need to do everything you can to build up your candidates and your contenders for the championships. But at the same time, build up your champions at the same time. And they're doing a perfect job keeping Rey doing his thing, building up wins, racking up the wins, building up his credibility, and Eddie, building up his character, building up what he could do in the ring and making him a credible champion. They're doing a phenomenal job with this.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned like how WCW put their cruiserweights on beyond the back burner. Like the two things that WCW is remembered for is the NWO and the cruiserweights, right?
Yeah.
The fans love the cruiserweight division. Is what people like you and I would tune in to watch in WCW. We didn't want to see Hogan. I didn't want to see Hollywood Hogan, run around against Rowdy Piper in their 50s. Like I didn't want to see that. The Halloween Havoc match that these guys have, Jim Ross referred to it on Raw is War as age in the cage. that's how he called it on Raw. He's like you don't want to see age in the cage. He's like, tune into Hell in a Cell. And and it's funny because these pay-per-views, then we're going to review Hell in a Cell next week. They're weeks apart from each other as well.
Yeah.
So you get Hogan and Piper in a terrible cage match compared to Shawn and Taker. Like you can really see why the WWE kind of took advantage and ran away with this thing going forward, right?
Yeah.
So we just saw Eddie Guerrero's go home for the pay-per-view. What's Rey Mysterio doing? Rey Mysterio has been given a television title shot against the Disco Inferno. This was terrible. Disco comes out, him and Rey fight for literally 2 minutes. Eddie Guerrero runs out. He attacks Rey, causing DQ, and he's trying to rip Rey's mask off. Well, that's awesome. They're on the outside. Rey's sitting on the steel steps against the post. Eddie's trying to rip his mask off. And then all of a sudden, Miss Jacqueline runs out, and her and Disco start brawling because they're having a pay-per-view match for whatever reason, on Halloween Havoc for the TV title. And then you just look around, and Rey and Eddie are gone. And they don't mention anything else about it.
Are you surprised that they did that?
No. No. I have a little thing I want to go to here before I get into my little thing here. The build is done now. What's your impression of the build leading up to this Halloween Havoc match? Where are we grading it here?
I honestly really liked this build. And I think, it's weird because this build really wasn't necessarily Eddie versus Rey for me. I think majority of this build was Rey and Eddie, not necessarily seeing them going up against each other, but rather building them up for each other. And I think that's a different outlook than what we've seen from recent weeks, from these episodes that we're doing, is that, every build has been, Hogan versus Savage, Austin versus Hart. It's never really been, well, we're going to build up Austin, we're going to build up Hart, and then they're going to go at each other. This is what we're getting here. And I actually really like this a lot. The great matches always make up for it as well. Again, Silver King, if anyone has any suggestions, please. Honestly, A-. I'm going to go A- on this one.
Fair.
I think there's a lot of great action. Sure, very short, but I remember getting the text from you with all these links. I was like, what the fuck is he making me do? Like, I just told him we have to shorten these episodes and he wants me to go longer. But then
when you click
look
on
at
it,
the
it's like 4
timestamps.
minutes, 3 minutes.
4 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I think the highest one was that the El Caliente match,
like
the
7
minute
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, though they're short, they're great matches in their own right. For TV to see that stuff, God, I wish I was watching WCW. I wish I was alive for this.
Yeah, because it was cool. Like if you didn't want to watch, whoever, let's just say Harlem Heat fighting on Nitro, you'd flip over to Raw and then it'd be the New Age Outlaw. Like it was really cool. It was a cool time period for sure.
So yeah, I have to give an A- to this feud. They did, like I keep saying, they did a great job building up Eddie and Rey. Honestly, most of this score goes to those matches. Yeah. Jericho and Eddie specifically. Again, I know Dave gave it that 3.5. Honestly, I would go 4.5. Mm-hmm. I think it told such a great story. Seeing Dean Malenko, seeing Psychosis, Silver King. I think
Right.
he's joining Little Guido with my
He's
with
your
my
other boy?
boys. Yeah.
Silver King and Guido in the mix.
Oh my God. How could you go wrong? That's a tag team made in heaven.
It's fair.
Yeah, but most of that grade's going to go to the matches. Had to take a little bit off for Disco Inferno, of course, and take a little bit off for the commentary. But honestly, again, most of when I was watching, I wasn't even paying attention to commentary because this was so good. A-.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a B. Only because I would have liked to have seen maybe a promo from Eddie. You know what I mean? Like I would have liked to have seen a little bit more between Rey and Eddie. I love the matches. I love just the simplicity of two guys winning matches leading up to a pay-per-view, or if they did lose, there was a reason why they lost. Like,
that's going to make this episode difficult to edit because I'm not going to have a lot of promos really to go in here. So I'm going to put in some bad sound bites from commentary.
Yeah, that's all right. You know what? I have faith that you're going to put out an A+ product like you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I do have a little bit of final thoughts leading into this. And I want to talk about WCW a little bit and just the amazing mid card that they had that would steal the show every week, even though they were only given these 5-minute matches that were ignored by commentator. Could you imagine if they just put like a quarter of the energy into the cruiserweight division that they did the NWO or Piper or DDP, whoever, right? But watching this build and just the way that they were ignored, a couple of years later, you're going to see the Radicals leave WCW. And it doesn't surprise me watching that. You know what I mean? Watching these guys ignored. And, I've heard interviews where Chris Jericho was like, they didn't even know what I was doing. Like, I would walk out and just make the most ridiculous hairstyles, or I would wear a t-shirt that I knew I shouldn't wear. And nobody checked in with us. Like, I could do whatever I wanted. There was no accountability. And so I see why all these guys would leave and go over to the WWF, and they made a big impact. Benoit and Eddie both became world champions in the WWF. Perry Saturn, I guess he was kind of like the least of all of them, but he still had a good run with Moppy, European champion, and then Dean Malenko went on to be one of their best agents for a long time. So just really dropping the ball, and it's moments like this when you look back at WCW and you can see why they didn't beat the WWF. But that's it. That's going to put a bow on the review of the build-up to this match. Are you ready to give us your breakdown of the match?
I have no further questions. Let's get right into Halloween Havoc. Ooh.
I kind of get nervous thinking about it, thinking about losing it. I wish it would never happen in my career, but they could beat you. And this thing comes off. That could be the end of my career.
And that is going to take us to October the 26th of 1997, MGM Grand in Las Vegas. We have the current WCW Cruiserweight Champion, Eddie Guerrero, defending his title against Rey Mysterio, who has put his mask up on the line. Anthony, the classroom is all yours.
All righty. So, opening moments of the match, right from the jump. What do I say every episode? I get tired in slow builds, and you see nothing here of a slow build. There's nothing slow about this. By the way, the match is only like 14 minutes, so you knew that there wasn't going to be any time to waste.
Well, Tony, I witnessed it firsthand. I think back to 1994 and the When Worlds Collide pay-per-view. Leading up to that point, he had turned his back. Quick attempt at the Quebrada moonsault. Nice arm drag by Mysterio. So quick in the air. And he sends Eddie airborne.
I'm going to tell you what, he flew across that ring right there.
Like a dart.
Oh, man.
Cross body, they both go on the outside. Eddie ends up against the safety rail.
So they go hot and heavy right from the jump, doing all these crazy spots. Mysterio looks like a star already, and Eddie is doing a lot to help him look like a star, while Rey is doing as much as he can to present Eddie as this credible champion at the same time. By the way, whoa. Before we even get into all of this, the ring gear.
We
need to talk about this.
I was waiting for that. Rey Mysterio's legendary Phantom
Maybe
gear,
I'm going
man.
too quick now. Like, we need to take a moment to
Hold
appreciate
on, put in a rest
this
hold,
ring gear.
man.
Yeah, man. It's beautiful stuff. I never even realized that the mask was connected to the bodysuit. I also didn't realize that it was like the designs were drawn on, because there was a point in the match when I saw like Eddie had like some black paint on him. I was like, where did that come from? And then I
Ray
looked
had it around his eyes, and
and it was like drawn onto his on his suit. Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it or at least it seemed like, because it started to blend out a little bit. So I think so, but it looked great. Even Eddie, you know, with the gold, good stuff. But yeah, moving back into the match. So what's going to be hard about breaking down this match is because there is so much high flying shit that goes on, and I don't know any of the proper names or how to explain anything. I'm actually glad that you didn't pop quiz me on the Mike Tenay episode where he starts listing all of the names of the movies.
I thought about being an asshole like that, but I have a different pop quiz for you later.
Oh shit! All right, I got to get ready for that one. But okay, so the best way I can explain it, it's basically like he does the springboard into the DDT. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so he springboard up, did a backflip or a moonsault, and as he was coming down, he hit him with a DDT.
Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you about, I don't know about hummingbirds, but Eddie Guerrero has mounted a tremendous offense. Tackle right there. He got it turned around. Got it turned around right there.
You're right, out of nowhere. He dropped him.
That was one for the highlight reel of the year right there, guys.
Yeah, so perfect of a move. You know, and I love that. Sure, we've seen a lot of the psychology stuff and, you know, calculated high flying moves. Sure, you know, seeing Eddie kind of wait around for the move took away from it just a little bit, but honestly, not even that much, because when you're with Rey Mysterio doing these moves, it's kind of similar to Phoenix in that, sure, I don't like when they wait around, but you know that the move's going to be great. So it's okay.
And it was quick too. But and the thing I kind of gave it a pass on is that Eddie was moving. You know what I mean? So it's not like he just stood there, like he was taking steps forward. So it looked like he was trying to do something, but really he was just getting in position. So I thought they hit it really well.
Very true.
I've listened to Ray do an interview before where he talks specifically about that spot and another spot that happens later on when he does the flip dive out the outside and hits him with the Hurricane Rana. Those spots where Ray has said that him and Eddie have had a million matches before, but just this night, everything clicked. You know what I mean? Like they've tried that backflip spot before. It hasn't worked out. That Hurricane Rana spot was called on the fly. It wasn't supposed to be a Hurricane Rana. It was just supposed to be a flip dive. And it just so happened that they put it into a Hurricane Rana. And I think Ray said that they've only been able to do that like twice out of all their matches they've done. So just all the right magic in the air for this night.
You know what I mean? Athleticism.
Yeah, man.
We've seen a lot of
there.
Over the top. Oh, he took him on.
The somersault flip.
I've never seen anything
into
like
the
this all
flying
my
head
life.
scissors on the floor.
Wow, I've never seen anything like that.
But kind of backtracking a little bit, Eddie again slows down the pace. He plays he plays his role so well here. You know, you don't really see him doing a lot of the high flying moves. He's taking on the technical role. And that's especially certain here. He makes those fast paced moments for Ray hit really well.
Mm-hmm.
When Eddie slides groin first into the ring post and he kind of gets out of the ring, and then Ray does the crossbody over the ring post. I love seeing when wrestlers go over the ring post.
Yeah.
I think Ricochet's starting to do that now too. And I think it's such a great visual.
Well, that'll stop it right there.
What agility, just raised up.
The slide don't hurt, it's that quick stop.
Yeah, you're not getting it done. And that certainly has changed the complexion of this matchup. To the top turnbuckle, Rey Mysterio Jr.
Over the post with that plancha, the cross body block on target.
There's
I like that
point.
spot because Ray was in the tree of woe, right? And he sat up. So it's not like he just like jumped up. Like Ray was already on the top after Eddie went out. So it was just like it's such a smooth transition, right?
Absolutely. There's a point in the match where it is literally just Ray offense, and it's the most crazy shit that I've ever seen. We get like a 619 head scissors where I think I know that Ray like does the 619 like move, but he turns it into a head scissors somehow, which I think this was all in the ring. Right after that, the somersault onto the floor, fucking amazing stuff. And then we get a corkscrew moonsault almost into a headbutt. Yeah, I think that's right after. Yeah, I think it was Mike Tenay that mentioned like I think he headbutted him on that one.
Both these men are winners here tonight. We have seen some revolutionary, spectacular moves that we have never seen before. And that's one great thing about Rey Mysterio Jr. and Eddie. Something new every time.
Oh! Corkscrew moonsault almost into like a headbutt.
Yeah, I wrote, like, by this point, we're really reaching a high on offense. Like, it's very fast paced. Rey looked like a star this entire sequence. He does 3 moves straight that looked phenomenal. I also want to bring up Mike Tenay on commentary, right? This was him on commentary.
Yeah.
You can see the similarities between him and Excalibur, whereas Excalibur is very knowledgeable in, I remember for the Japanese versus USA tournament that they did for the women, he knew his shit and he knows his shit all the time. You could see that with Mike Tenay and the Lucha Libre. You know, he
the original
knew,
professor, man.
Yeah, man, he knew all of this stuff, and you could see where I wouldn't be surprised if Excalibur got a lot of his inspiration from Mike Tenay.
Mike Tenay actually was not a part of the commentary team in WCW at this point on a regular basis. So they would do hour 1 of Nitro would be Larry Zbyszko, Tony Schiavone, and I can't remember who else. I don't know if they had 3 at the time. And then hour 2, they would substitute Zbyszko for Bobby Heenan. They used to mainly just bring Tenay in to do the luchador matches. And then eventually more and more Tenay would find himself in and eventually become a full-time part of the team. But
that's awesome. I love that he's specifically for because that's, you know, his specialty.
Made it feel special, but it made the matches feel special too. And let's be real, like Dusty Rhodes and Bobby Heenan and Larry Zbyszko, they're not calling, and Tony Schiavone, they're not calling a lucha match properly. Like,
do you think that putting like someone like Larry Zbyszko on commentary would have hurt this match?
Yes, 1,000%.
You think so?
1,000%. Like, even if a lot of people forget this, but Dusty Rhodes was on commentary during this match too.
Yeah, I heard that voice.
He barely said 3 words the whole time. You know,
Dusty
was smart enough. Yeah, he did a flip, baby. Like, you know, Dusty was smart enough to shut up and let Tenay, you know, call the shots here.
So great. Oh my goodness. I hope we do some Dusty in the future. Yeah, that's another guy I want to look into.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the right one with Dusty where I can find the right build so we can just rip into Dusty promos. We can just do a whole episode on Dusty promos.
We might have to look into that one. That would be a fun one. And then, so the last big move before the finish that I wanted to bring up is, I think Rey does, he attempts to do like a springboard, and Eddie counters it into a backbreaker.
Can he connect? Waiting on Eddie to get up, and Eddie caught him. He caught him and turned it into a backbreaker.
And it was like a tiny bit sloppy, but I think that made it so much better because it looked brutal. Like, he drops him on his knee. It looks like amazing. And then we get into the finish, and what else could you say? Like, from the top rope, again, spiking him. Like, I can't get over how good that Hurricane Rana looks just every time he does it. I don't know, like, why he didn't continue to do. Well, did he continue to do it like when he went to WWE? Like, at least in the earlier stages?
West Coast. It's the West Coast pop. He still uses it to this day.
Oh, right. But I don't remember him like necessarily spiking.
It's not as aggressive in the WWE, but you got to remember too, 97, you didn't know a lot about head injuries at the time, right? WWE is not doing pile drivers and headshots anymore. Like, it was more laid back at this time, right? So now instead of spiking his head in a little more dangerous, it's just more of a smoother rotation.
This is from the middle turnbuckle. He got it down. 1, 2, 3. Yes. New champion. Wow. New champion. What a fight. What a battle. And they are standing here
for this man, Rey Mysterio Jr.
Actually, I think for both men.
I think you're right, Schiavone.
I forgot he did the West Coast pop because nowadays he just does the
splash.
Falling. Right? Yeah. I don't even call it a splash because he doesn't get any airtime on it. He just goes up to the ropes and
just falls.
Yeah. But yeah, that finish was beautiful. I don't remember exactly the match, but there was a certain point where he literally spiked one of his opponents on his head. Like, you could see his head get driven into the mat. I was like, fuck that.
Yeah. He was vicious with that one.
God, this was a really good match. I was expecting it to be great. I got to give it an A+. I think
1,000%. I would say this one and the Brett and Austin have been the best matches we've watched so
hands
far.
down. Hands down. Yeah. I was thinking about whether or not I should go A, because I want those A+ to really mean a lot. But I was like, first of all, it's been a few episodes since we've gotten an A+. Make it an exclusive, there's no reason why it shouldn't get an A+. You know what I mean? Like, this was in its own right, obviously Hart and Austin and Rey and Eddie, completely different matches, but in their own rights, they are amazing. Even both of the Hart and Austin matches are completely different in their own rights, and both are A+. I love that this show is giving me the perspective of different A+ matches, because no one match is really ever the same, except for all the Raw rematches that we see on a weekly basis. But as far as the A+ and the 5 stars, I guess if you want to call it, nothing is ever going to be truly the same. And I think that is what I'm really picking up from the classroom, is that there's so much different types of wrestling, and when it's done really great, it all should be categorized in that category as A+, 5 stars, whatever you call it. Although it's different, it's still similar in that regard. So what did I give the build? An A- for the build, A+ for the match itself. Like, damn, how could you go wrong there?
This is in my top 2 or 3 favorite WCW matches of all time.
It's got to be.
It might be the best. I really Bret Hart and Chris Benoit had a really good match. The Owen Hart tribute match.
I've heard about that. Yeah,
that was a really, really special match for different reasons, obviously, as well.
Right,
but
exactly.
This is definitely the most famous, for the right reasons, at least the most famous WCW match of all time. It's not the finger poke of doom or Goldberg and Nash, all that stuff. This is
Vince Russo.
Vince, bro. The one thing I took away from this, though, is how into the match the crowd was, considering how ignored the build was. And that's something that WWE should have looked at. And I bet you they wish they did in hindsight. So let's go a little pop quizzes here. This one's not so much a pop quiz, but did you know that the original finish of this match was supposed to be Rey Mysterio losing?
No. Wow, really?
Eric Bischoff wanted Mysterio to take the mask off, and both Rey and Eddie fought against this. And they pushed really, really hard, and they did convince Bischoff to change his mind, which is the right choice to make here.
Yes.
And Bischoff even kind of talked about it, saying, I didn't understand the importance of the mask. I just, it was a prop to me.
Obviously, if you watch WCW, you could tell that.
So that was the big one that I took away from that. I thought was interesting. Pop quiz time.
All right.
So new cruiserweight champion Rey Mysterio coming off this big angle mask versus title. How long do you think Rey Mysterio held on to this title for?
Wow. Because Eddie held on to it, what was it? Probably a month that he won it from Jericho. Knowing WCW booking, did he lose it the next night?
Rey Mysterio held the WCW Cruiserweight Championship for 15 days before dropping it back to Eddie Guerrero on an edition of Monday Nitro.
All right, so not as bad, but
not as bad. But come on, like
still pretty bad.
You're coming off this huge buildup, and you're giving Rey, who's on fire, 15 days. I guess they were really into the Eddie heel character. I loved how Eddie carried the belt out over his shoulder backwards. I thought that looked cool. I guess it's time to get into the honor roll.
Yes.
And we have a first ever this week. We have a tie in the honor roll.
Okay, so I wanted to bring this up because I hope that it is who I think it is. Because like Mike last week on your episode of Count It Out, I will be so mad if it is not who I think it is. At least one of them. But now that it's 2, I think I can predict who it is. But go ahead. I will be so mad.
We have a tie this week. First time ever. The real candidate and the real honor roll winner is the Professor Mike Tenay.
Good.
Hands down.
There he is.
Hands down.
There he is. Good.
He was the MVP of this entire build. He added credibility to it. And of course, he's the Professor. I have to honor my hero, right?
Absolutely.
But we are also going to give an honor roll to the man. Silver King is getting a nod this week as well. He definitely
did it
made
for
a
me.
lasting impression. He did it. He made a lasting impression, and he's getting a nod this week. So first time ever. I'm not going to do that very often, everybody. So just so you guys know, this is special. Silver King, Mike Tenay, 2-time honor roll winner. Congratulations to both.
Amazing stuff. So actually, I wanted to present an idea to you live on the Classic Match Classroom. Booking on the fly. This is something that I didn't even talk to you about this off air, but I figured,
we're shooting here.
If anything, I'll edit it out. But so you figured, like, we both give our grades, classroom grades for the rating of the story and the match, and then you give your honor roll. However, I was thinking, like, you always talk about like the unsung heroes. Well, we should also give praise, obviously, to the greats, and we do with this, showcasing the classic matches and all that. But there should be like an upper echelon, the highest tier, and not every week, but we should kind of induct the greatest, I guess, into kind of our classroom Hall of Fame. So I'm thinking about calling it the graduating class of 2021. And for the remainder of the year, and because this is only really, I guess, one semester for us, because we started in the fall and we'll end in the winter. For this year, let's induct every once in a while, we won't do this every week, the top tier guys that are doing their darndest, the greatest stuff. And I have 2 inductees, one from a previous week and one from obviously this week. So this is big. This is big here. So first of all, are you good with this?
I love it.
All right.
But this has got to be something special. You got to earn your way into this.
Yeah, I will make sure, because for me, it's like,
I will not let you bastardize the good name of the Classic Match class.
Of course. Again, I have the editing powers here. You could just yell at me and tell me to edit it out. But, for me, it's more along the lines of people that are really connecting to me, being a newer viewer, not seeing that kind of rhyme, seeing these things for the first time, seeing these guys who really connects with me and who I'm putting at, like, these top wrestlers of all time. And I think as far as what we've seen so far, there's 2 pretty obvious candidates from what we've seen. So might as well induct them here. So for your graduating class of 2021 so far, because maybe we'll get some more candidates in the future, your first inductee, big name, Bret the Hitman Hart, of course. He just everything, Bret's little things, the whole feud with Austin, his ability to be a face slowly turn into a heel. He's earned his spot in the Hall of Fame, in our graduating class, as we'll call it. Getting into this week, who else could it be? Eddie Guerrero. I'm going to induct Eddie.
Wow.
Were you thinking Rey?
I actually thought you were going to put Mick Foley in, because he's a 2-time honor roll.
Oh, you see, I was thinking Mick Foley, but he can't give him everything. He's already got his straight A's in the honor roll. I'm going to induct Eddie this week because, again, this is more along the lines of who I'm starting to connect a lot with. And upon watching Eddie throughout all these weeks, his ability to, change up his styles, match up with these high flyers and these technical wrestlers, and really putting himself in a great light, but at the same time putting his opponent in a great light. His matches with Rey and Jericho and Benoit, all top tier stuff. I mean, how could you not? And I'm sure once we hit on Eddie versus Brock, that'll strengthen his case. But, this match alone, and I was thinking about it, I wasn't sure if Rey should have been here or Eddie, but I think Eddie does so much in this feud, and he really, puts himself and other guys in the proper light. So although it was a close race with him and Silver King, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put Eddie Guerrero in our graduating class of 2021.
I love it. And you know what? I would like to make a suggestion that we just always have the honorary Mike Tenay is just always there.
Yeah.
He's the original professor. So he just has to be there.
He's got to be. He's him right. And Matt Stryker.
There you go. There you go. The Professor, the
Perfect.
Prodigy, right?
There you go. Perfect.
All right, man. Well, that's it for the lesson plan this week. Tune in next week. We are going to part one of a two-part series we're going to look at. I won't give the whole thing away yet, but part one, we're going to take a deep dive into the debut of Kane, leading into Hell in a Cell, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, Bad Blood 97. I got nothing left to say this week. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I am so happy that we finally hit on this match. Got to be one of the best that I've seen yet. Not much left to say. Make sure you're following us. Like I say it every week. Social medias are around us. Make sure you watch this feud. The playlist is there for a reason, folks. Go in the description, watch these matches, enjoy Rey and Eddie. Really check out Jericho and Eddie. And of course, Silver King. Just watch all of it. If you don't watch this feud, make sure you watch some Silver King and Little Guido while you're at it. But yeah, perfect stuff.
3 more wins. He's promoted to Gold King. And on that note, I got nothing left to say. So we are going to go ahead and dismiss the class.